developer productivity to new heights with UiPath Autopilot. My name is Sophia. I'm product marketing manager here at UiPath. And I know that most of you are here to see Autopilot in action. But before we jump to that, I just want to provide a bit context around what Autopilot is, who it is for, and how you as a developer can benefit from it, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Next slide, please. Next. Yep. So UiPath Autopilot is our new set of AI experiences across the UiPath platform. And basically, its main goal is to help everyone be more productive, from interns to developers to CEOs, to ensure that everybody in the company can benefit from it. Today, we'll focus more specifically on Autopilot experiences for developers, because we have mainly the technical developer audience here. So we'll take a closer look at Autopilot for Studio, Autopilot for Apps, and Autopilot for Test Suite. Let's go to the next slide. One more click. I think we have some animation there. Yeah. And I think one more. Super, thank you. So UiPath Autopilot is our next chapter in our path to help 2.5 million developers to automate their most tedious tasks. And what is cool about it is that it combines context and action to make it easy for you to discover what to automate, to actually automate it, and to operate those automations at scale. And you may know that there are a lot of AI assistants on the market right now. So what is unique about Autopilot is that it combines context and action. So you don't just have to make it brainstorm, don't just have to have generative AI brainstorm a poem for you, but instead it takes action for you, which I think is super cool. So let's take a closer look at Autopilot for UiPath Studio. Next slide, please. Yeah, so Autopilot for Studio helps you go from natural language to business outcomes. For example, using text to workflows, you can transform descriptions into automation workflows. Then using automated code generation, you can transform descriptions to code-based automations. And then thanks to generation text to expressions, you can easily generate expressions. Actually, Autopilot generates VB expressions for you. So you can quickly solve the problem that you need without having to distract for those expressions and without having to memorize them. But as I mentioned, Autopilot is available not just in Studio, but also beyond it. So as a developer, you know that creating an automation workflow is only half the journey, but it's also important to make sure that you present it to your teams in a user-friendly interface. This is where Autopilot for Apps can be of a great help. Next slide, please. Yeah, so with Autopilot for Apps, you can create apps with natural language, or even drag and drop PDFs or images right into UiPath apps. And just like in Studio, you can also generate expressions with natural language. And then you have like this automation workflow, you have the user-friendly interface, and the next also important step is to set up robust tests to make sure that your automation performs as it should. So this is where UiPath Autopilot for Test Suite can be of a great help. If we can go to the next slide, please. Yep, thank you. Yes, so with Autopilot for Test Suite, you can easily generate tests from your requirements, you can generate code from comments, and you can surface actionable insights from execution results. So this is also a pretty cool feature. And then last but not least, this is something that not just developers, but basically everyone in your company will benefit from. It's Autopilot for Assistant. Next slide, please. Oh, back. Oh, super, thank you. Yeah, so you probably know that at UiPath, we've had this vision of a robot for every person for quite a long time. And we think that with Autopilot for Assistant, and it's now becoming closer than before. So thanks to Autopilot for Assistant, you can basically help your team uncover the automations that you've created. So Autopilot for Assistant surfaces them and helps you run them quickly. And also it includes Clipboard AI and easy access to integration service for building API automations. What is also cool about it is that it combines generative and specialized AI to grab context from a wide variety of systems and documents, and take action based on that. And all of that is happening in a simple chat interface. If there is no automation in place or no API connection in place, Autopilot can build one for you on the fly. So I think it's super cool for you as a developer, for everyone in your company. And I just want to encourage you to join our private preview for Autopilot for Assistant. For that, join our insider program and join the waitlist for Autopilot for Assistant to be among the first to try out this super cool feature and functionality. Thank you so much. That's it from me. And back to you, Christina, for the poll.
Okay, hello everyone. So we have a poll now for the entire audience. You can see it on screen, and it's easier to scan the QR code to get into the quiz room, but my colleagues will share the link and the code in the chat as well, if you wish to go by that from your desktops. But let me know in the chat as soon as you were able to join the quiz room, so we know that everyone is able. And we'll just keep the QR code like a bit more, 30 seconds on screen, so you all get the chance to scan it. So let me know in the chat if you managed to get into the quiz room, please. Okay, Sean, thanks. So it works, the quiz room is open because I have to stop sharing to switch screens, so I just want to know that you managed. Okay, we'll leave it just a bit more on the screen because we have almost 150 people in the audience today, so it will take a bit of time till they join. Did everyone manage to scan the QR code on screen, or you wish me to hold it a bit longer? It's easier to join from mobile. So if you join from mobile, just scan the QR code. You'll be right into the quiz room. No code required.
I think we can check the poll now. The Menti platform.
Okay. Wait a bit. Oh, I see we already have answers. Okay, let me start sharing. So people are already answering to our first questions. Okay, I think we're good on this one. We'll move to the next. Oh, still. It's still moving. Okay, we have 80 people in the quiz room and still getting votes.
Many thanks for your answers. They're really useful for us.
Okay, I think we can move now to the next one.
Nice to see how your preferences are changing.
Okay, we'll try to move now.
So generate workflow, super.
Let's see. Okay, so we have this one. Here we got all the answers already. Just one moment for me to check something, please. Okay, let's go over it a bit once more. I think we pretty much got answers on all of them, but yeah. Okay. So you have 20 seconds also to answer this question. What else would you want to use Autopilot for apps for? Okay. These are the answers. So it looks like we have clear options. Let's go to the next one then. 70 players in the quiz room. Also 20 seconds to answer this next question.
Yes, this is the last one.
Yeah.
And then Gurdeep will take over.
So this is a quality marker for adopting Autopilot. Okay. 50% faster.
Super useful. Thank you a lot.
Very. Okay, thank you everyone. Now I will switch over to Gurdeep, I think.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Gurdeep. I work as a principal software engineer in UiPath with the apps team. So I'll be walking you through today through the usage of Autopilot in apps. You must have got some insight into the feature already via Sophia that Autopilot for apps is used for generation of apps through visual or textual descriptions. So in today's demo, what I'll show you is that how we can convert a form into a fully functional app using apps Autopilot. So we are taking a use case here, like there is a client who regularly onboards a vendor into their systems, and the entire process is manual right now. The form is filled, and then the data is manually fed into the client's systems, and then Salesforce, NetSuite accounts are created, and then Slack notifications or emails are sent to the admin to notify them that that vendors have been onboarded. Now with Autopilot, we'll see that this entire process can be automated in a matter of few minutes. So I'll start by showing you what the form looks like. So this is the form for onboarding a vendor. So right now it's manually filled, and then I take those details and feed those details into my system, and then create the Salesforce accounts and then send emails and Slack notifications. So what I'll do is that I'll take this form and first I'll start by digitizing this form. So I'll go to the apps homepage and I'll try to attach this form here. Vendor onboarding. So what it's doing in the background now is that it's trying to parse the document to identify the text elements and everything. And then now we are using Gen AI to generate the layout, and that will be used to finally develop the app. Another thing is that it not only will it generate the app, but well, it will also figure out what the entity should be, because uh, there are certain fields that essentially, you'll while filling a form, you'll be filling all those fields, and then what will happen is that we need an entity to store this data. So what will happen is that we will figure out the schema of the entity from this form, and we'll create an entity in data service, and the entity integration will also be set up in the app. So finally, you'll have a fully functional app just through one click. So you see here that the pages are being generated, and the next thing it will do is that now it's generating the entities, it's setting up the rules. Once that is done, we'll have a look at the app. And once this is done, you can essentially just run the app. So you can fill the details of the vendor and then just submit it, and it'll upload the data to the entity. So it's about to be done almost. Yeah. So here you see the form has been converted into a UiPath app, and we have all the fields here, all the input controls. And then let's go to this page, and here there should be a submit button, which essentially will be configured to send the data to the created entity. So you see this entity has been created. So it figured out what are the fields, city, country, name, state, all those things, and it created an entity in data service. So let's go to this vendor onboarding page, and there should be a submit button here. And let's look at the events. So you see there is a create entity record rule, and the entity fields are correctly mapped to the controls, right? So whatever you enter will be ingested into the entity. And we'll just add a rule and just add another show message here so that I'll know that the record has been created. Vendor onboarded. And one more thing that you can do is that now this will essentially onboard the vendor into the system. So next thing what you can do is that let's say you want to use this vendor information and you want to create a Salesforce account, or you want to onboard the vendor into NetSuite. That essentially you will do via workflow. And using the workflow, you can also send a Slack notification, or you can send an email. So what you can do is that you can also configure a start process rule here. So start process. And here, essentially, again, we are leveraging Wingman Autopilot. Sorry. So what will happen is that if you don't have a workflow, you can describe the workflow. For example, process which reads vendor entity record, creates a Salesforce account, and sends a Slack notification, multiple, whatever you want, essentially, you can describe. So this will take you to Studio for Autopilot. I'll not go into the details of Autopilot Studio. My colleague Alvin will be covering that. But this will give you the template of the activity, and then you can continue with the development of the workflow. And if you're happy with it, you can customize it. You can finally publish it to your personal workspace. And once you are done publishing it and you come back to apps, that process will be auto configured. Will be auto configured here as well. So even your process integration would be ready. So I'll not be showing that part. That is something, the workflow part, Alvin will be covering in detail. So I'll just run this app now. Before that, I'll show you one more thing in the design time. We also have Autopilot for generating expressions. So let me just add one more page here and pull in a table control maybe. There is some lag on my screen. Meanwhile, I'll just run this app. So you can generate the app using a plain text representation also. For example, generate a form which to take this and these details, and you can describe it in text as well. You can use a screenshot of a form, and those things also work well. For some reason, my screen has okay. So while the app loads, let me just add a table control here. So let's say I want to display so if I'm not very well versed with VB, I can describe my expression here. Let's say I want to display all vendors from a particular city. So I can say filter records on the vendor on onboarding entity with city equal to Delhi, and project only city and let's say name. So as you can see, it has added the filter condition where the city should be Delhi and it's displaying name and city. You can also ask it to explain the expression and it will tell you what it did. Okay, while this happens, meanwhile, our app should be up now, and let's just run it. And let's submit. So vendor onboarded, the data was ingested into the entity, and that's also you see the entire process of onboarding, which was essentially manual. It took me around 5 to 6 minutes to automate everything using Autopilot. So it generated the app, it created the entity, it added the entity integration, and if you want to go forward, you can use Autopilot and it has explained the expression as well here. Yeah, so you can use Autopilot for Studio and also set up your process integration. So that was about Autopilot in apps. So next, Alvin will be taking you over, and explaining you the details of Autopilot in Studio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gurdeep. Let me just share my screen. So, hey everyone, I'm Alvin, and I am building and leading the Autopilot initiative for Studio. Together, I'll walk you through a couple of scenarios that we think will help make automation developers more productive and will make automation development more fun at the same time. So, right, who has issues understanding complicated expressions? I bet many of you do. Sometimes finding the right activity or right activities and chaining them together, it takes up quite a bit of time when developing automations. I'm sure some of you also have trouble or spending way too much time sometimes identifying UI elements and stuff like that. And test automation, well, we all love it. It's a must, or we do believe it's a must. But sometimes it may get really tedious writing tests, especially if you have to write lots of them, based on some, especially based on some manual test steps. So I'll walk you through a couple of interesting examples. First off, let's start with another vendor onboarding scenario. So I'll kind of take over from Gurdeep's scenario, but instead I want to showcase the power of Studio Web. We'll go to Studio Desktop later. So Studio Web is a great product, or we believe is a great product when it comes to building small to medium-sized automations, especially some ones that leverage APIs through integration service, as well as UI automation on the web. Instead of what Gurdeep showed, it's fairly similar, but I actually want to start off showing off our integration service workflow triggers. And I've written up a prompt over here to the new generate workflow. So let me actually just start over and show you. So in Studio Web, this is now or will now be available. You'll have this new generate button, or you can just start typing over here, really. Let me just add this, and then, hey, I can now actually generate my automation directly in Studio Web. So this basically starts the workflow scaffolding process, where we take your prompt, we try to understand your best intentions, we try to plan your workflow ahead of time based on what we can do in using our activities, using our integration service, using the connectors that you have in integration service and the connections that you've made, as well as trying to write up expressions for you in order to chain up the activities as good as possible and scaffold the workflow, which can help you get bootstrapped really quickly. So as you can see, Studio Web built a workflow for me. So let's say it's starting out, it seems like it's starting out with the Gmail trigger, right, as I requested, with the subject starting with vendor. Then over here, it's an assign activity. Over here, it just has to extract the vendor text from the email subject, which is, well, the company name, right? Then later on, it will search for the vendor on Google as I requested. It will create the new vendor in NetSuite. And finally, it will notify me on Slack, right, about having created this vendor. So let's continue in Studio and let's begin scaffolding this. So just take a brief moment. Right now, Studio is loading up my generated workflow. Cool. So let's see what Studio built over here. It added a trigger for an email received in my Gmail. This is a test account, obviously. It's extracting the vendor text from the email subject. So you can see it already generated this this expression for me, or the email subject. It basically cuts off the first 7 characters of the email subject, so vendor, blah, blah, right? It's trying to set it on the vendor name output, what it did not do perfectly. As I said, GenAI, it might not always be perfect, right? Over here, sorry, the vendor name, it used object as a type. I actually want to use text as a type. Okay. Right. So let me just 1 second. Let me just maybe clear it and reset it. In some cases, you have to do that to have it use the new type. And now it also added the automation scope, right? I just mentioned search for the vendor on Google. I didn't really mention what we should do with that specific vendor. So let me just fire up google.com over here. And now I'll select Google as the tab to automate. Now, as you can see, I have this new generate button over here. So let me just try use it. So now automatically it went into the selection helper with a prompt based on the intent of this UI automation block. What this says is, hey, it should type vendor name into the search box. So it figured out from the context that search for vendor on Google would translate to these UI automation activities given this page. So yeah, this sounds good to me. Let's confirm. Okay, cool. Let's see. You can see it already populated the use browser block. Finally, I have the create vendor in NetSuite activity. This is an integration service activity. So we'll just create my vendor over here. Now, you can see it uses the vendor name, it uses the email from address, but obviously I didn't do anything. I just did a Google search, right? So actually thinking about it, I want to do more than a Google search. I actually don't want to use example.com as my website URL, right? This is not ideal, nor do I want to use this phone number. Actually, I'm not really interested in the phone number. But in order to actually make this even better, let me just add up another use browser block. Let's say in Google, I search for UiPath Inc. Okay, over here. So I found out some things about UiPath, and now what I want to do is actually want to get the website URL right directly from this Google search. So now I can again go into the generate experience. Obviously, since I just added this browser block, it won't know the intent, but I can just tell it. So let's just say let's just say that get the company website, or yeah, let's see. Okay, so it says uipath.com over here. It found it, let's say. Now let me save this block. Now it will again generate based on that page. It generated the get text block, as you can see over here. And in the output, it also added this company website variable. You can see the variable should actually also be also be over here, which is really cool. Great. So now I actually have the company website, which is great. Let me just feed it in over here. Okay, I'll use the variable instead, the company website. Now let's give this workflow a shot. Oh, the Slack notification. Unfortunately, my connection seems to be broken. I'll really quickly reconnect to Slack. Just give me 1 second. Now my workflow should refresh with the new connection. Cool. So since my connection was broken, this activity wasn't fully configured by Autopilot. I will have to configure it manually. But let me just say something like, let's fire up the text builder, and let's say I want to use the new vendor in NetSuite, or actually I want to use, let me see what I want to use. I want to use the vendor name, actually. Let me just use the vendor name. See, I have trouble deciding what to use. So sometimes the Gen AI is much faster than I am. Was generated, the website is, let's say, the website is, which was in company website, right? Cool. Okay, so if I configure this one, let's send it as a bot. Okay, now I'll test my workflow. And actually, I tried this scenario before, and you'll see we might run into a small issue, which we'll again fix with Autopilot. But let's see. So now I can even see in Studio Web what the jobs, everything this robot is managed. It's running in the cloud. Unfortunately, due to this beautiful banner, I can't see much. But in the background, we are fetching the required fields. And as I unfortunately expected, it says that we have entered an invalid field value for the URL. You can see uipath.com in NetSuite is not a valid URL. Now, of course, NetSuite maybe could do something about this bug, or let's say feature in some cases. But it's clear that when I get when I get the URL from UAutomation, it's only uipath.com. It doesn't contain the HTTPS and the other funky stuff that I have to add over here. But actually, I can fix this. So let me say company website prepend with HTTPS. And boom, my expression editor added the HTTPS over here. It's actually concatenating HTTPS to the company website field. I can even test it over here, and I know I'll have uipath.com. Now, HTTPS uipath.com, that actually sounds like a proper URL. Okay, let's give it another shot. Again, we have the live stream over here on the right-hand side. We can see it running on the robot in the cloud. We'll again fire up Google and find our URL. Cool. It seemed to have run successfully. I first want to check Slack. So over here, I have my Slack. So UiPath, I think, was generated. Website is UiPath.com. Okay, cool. That's an actual website, so that's great. And now let's check it out in NetSuite. Over here, you can see I now have UiPath.inc over here with my beautiful test email, which, well, is slightly different than what you'd expect. Cool. So that concludes the studio website of things. I hope you found it very useful. We showed off the generate workflow experience. We showed off the generate expressions experience, and we showed the generate UI automation experience, which ties in very nicely to the generate workflow experience. Now, the generate expressions experience is also available on Studio Desktop. The generate workflows experience is not yet available in Studio Desktop, but we are planning to add it over there as well. But let's switch over to Studio Desktop so I can show you more of what we are bringing in Studio Desktop. So first you have the generate expressions. I won't demo that again. It's very similar to what you have over in Studio Web. And then you have the generate test case experience. Now, this is very interesting. Let me show you. So you have to, let's say I built this vendor onboarding flow, right? But I really want to make sure that NetSuite, whenever I do changes in the system, still runs as expected. So normally in the past, let's say my team used to have some manual testers. So they would like go to new vendor, fill in the details, submit. Yeah, they have this test written down in test manager. The test plan will contain it. They always run it manually, right? And it might be a fairly tedious process. So I've taken the liberty of creating an object repository over in a Studio Desktop project. So over here, I've mapped some screens from NetSuite, like the new vendor, like vendor search, like edit. And besides that, given the test case that I currently have in Test Manager with the manual steps and the subject repository, I can now try to auto-generate my test case. So let's see this in action. It will only take a couple of seconds. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at what the AI generated. Remember, generative AI scaffolds, it's not always perfect. It might make some small mistakes here and there. It sometimes depends on the prompt, right? If your prompt is very unclear, it might not give you what you want, and you have to be more descriptive. Well, let's see over here. So it has like 4 steps. The first was a new vendor, fill in all the details and submit. And you can see it started out with the UI automation. I'll actually close these. It opens the new vendor screen, which is great. And it somehow managed to figure out the details, right? Because it had the object repository, it was able to figure out that this form contains these fields and just came up with some random data for these fields. Nobody told it to. The prompt was simply this, right? I think that's pretty cool. Now, then on it saved it, attached to the vendor create confirmation screen, clicked on the confirmation, then tries to attach the vendor search screen. This might actually not be ideal because, well, it hasn't really opened the vendor search screen. So actually here I wanted to open instead of attach. Other than that, it seems cool. It's like it's getting the vendor name, and finally, it's very finally the vendor name is Acme Corp, right? So let's give this one a shot. This is also showcases our new code automations feature. Right now, generate test case is only available within code automations. We are planning to add generation to test case workflows in the future, but right now, this integration with Autopilot for Test Suite is only available within coded automations. Cool. So as you can see, it actually created a new vendor. It searched for it, and then it edited it and found out, hey, this is actually the vendor I wanted. In the end, the verification seems to have passed. Well, this test is really cool. It has one slight problem, right? If I run it again, it will fail because the company name is Acme Corp and it's static. Whenever you write tests, you should have random names, right? So let's actually write up a method which would get me a random company name. Cool. And I just wrote the outline of the method, and you can see now I have this cool implement method title over the method. Let me try once more, and if not, I'll give it some better instructions on how to actually generate. Okay, great. So here the autopilot figured out, hey, I would like a random company name. It came up with some random companies over here. It just tries to pick one of these random companies. This is not exactly what I want, right? So that's fine. And now I can go back and be more descriptive. Let's say just generate a method which returns a company name appended with a unique ID. Let's say something like this. Seem to have some slight instability in my system right now. Okay, so there are some scenarios where it might have some small issues. Right now, I'm not using the production deployment, so yeah, it seems to have some slight issues, but anyhow, normally this would generate me a method which just returns a company name appended with a unique ID auto-generated, which I can then use to run this test case. And basically, then I can just publish the test case, have it in Orchestrator, and have an automation for it. Cool. So that was about it. That showcases also what we currently have in Autopilot for Studio Desktop, which is the generate expressions, the generate code, and the generate test case features. The generate test case features is only available in fully automations. And because I have seen that this question was already asked multiple times, the generate workflow and generate test case in the standard UiPath workflows experience will be available in Studio Desktop, likely with the 24.4 community release. Christina, I think you can start sharing the slide. Thank you very much.
I think you have like one more slide with the next sessions.
Exactly.
Okay. Wait then. So.
Cool. So as you've seen, everything that you've seen today in Studio Web and in Studio Desktop can be accessed through our UiPath Insider program. And you can basically just try it out for yourself. You can join the Insider by joining the Insider program. It shouldn't take long to set up. But I also have a special announcement today. The Studio Web public preview will go live in community within the next few days. Please look out for a forum post, and you will be able to try it out in Studio Web in your community orgs as part of the public preview very, very soon. And I hope you will enjoy it and be delighted. But obviously, send us your feedback. We'd like to know your use cases. We'd like to know where Autopilot does a great job and where we can still improve. So yeah, besides that, especially if you're going to play around with it, I do recommend that you download the prompts and use cases to try Autopilot out in the public preview or in the Insider program. For Studio Desktop, expect 23.12 public preview. So this is also coming out soon. Anyhow, thank you very much. This is our last Dev Dive session of the year, but we invite you to take part in the next Dev Dive sessions next year. Christina, thank you.
Yeah, I hope my colleagues have the time to share the new DevDive series link in the chat now for DevDive 2024, as the page is already published and you can start joining for the very new next series for 2024. This has been an amazing year. We delivered 12 sessions. Roxana, Sofia did, our product marketing team in collaboration with product as well. Every session had very, very good engagement and valuable content. So I think you can wait the same for next year, as the platform is also developing. And we already have 2 sessions published, as you can see, January and February. For January 25, we have fast track time to value with UiPath solution accelerators. And for February 22, we have leverage APIs and generative AI to power automations for RPA and software tests. So take the time, register, view our brand new page for DevDives 24, and make sure you save your seat for the upcoming sessions of DevDives. There are not many, just once a month, but very valuable. And you can also give some feedback in the chat if you attended more DevDives this year and you have some feedback to give us. We'll move now into Q&A for our speakers. And I will ask those of you who want to place a question to unmute. I think we have one question unanswered. I will try to find it for Alvin. So, but till then, if you want to ask a question to either Guldeep or Alvin, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, there was a question. Okay, start as the web and then move to desktop. Yes, you absolutely can.
Okay. Okay, we have Praharsha raising the hand. Praharsha, can you unmute, please?
Yes, so are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so we don't need any particular versions like enterprise or community is also okay, right, for the autopilot?
Yes, community is absolutely okay. You can use it, and you will be, once the public preview is out in the next couple of days, please follow the forum.
Yes.
You will be able to use it in community, or you can register for the insider preview if you want to use it for enterprise works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Please raise your hand so you can unmute yourself. I've seen there was a huge engagement in the chat, so many questions were asked in the chat. If any of you didn't get an answer to the question you posted in the chat, now is the time to get the answer live. I'm sure there are more questions. Okay, Ciprian, can you unmute, please? Ciprian, can you? Let's see. Ciprian Constantinescu. Okay, you are unmuted. Can you ask, please? Okay, I don't know. Anthony, then? Anthony Clark, can you unmute?
Yes, I have a question. How well does this feature handle virtual desktop environments?
Virtual desktop environments.
Yeah, like a Citrix connection or a secure point, and generating code that would operate inside of those using computer.
Right. I mean, you can using, so you're asking rather about the UI automation component. Is that correct in Studio Web?
Yes, I use the desktop, but yes.
So the UI automation component is only available on Studio Web, and it's designed to run on serverless agents in our cloud managed by us. But you can also publish them on your own agents. So I'm not an expert on VPI environments, but I'm fairly sure you should be able to, if you have the UiPath robot installed on your Citrix VDI agent, it should be able to run over there.
And in cases where we don't have that option.
So if you want to run it through a local robot, then you have to build your automation manually, right? So if you have a robot on a different agent than inside the Citrix PDI, in that case, you will have to augment your automation, at least augment your automation with the Citrix activities.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Priya, can you unmute, please?
Yeah, hi. This is Priya. So, I wanted to know with Studio Web, there are lots of connectors that we could integrate to. So in the autopilot, let's say I ask an automation to be built with ServiceNow, does it automatically like build those connections, or do I have to pre-build
Oh,
it before this happens?
so you have to connect to ServiceNow, but it's not necessary for us to scaffold your automation. So if you don't, for example, if you don't have a connection to ServiceNow, right? We know that we could hypothetically connect to ServiceNow, and we will still use ServiceNow activities to scaffold your workflow. If on top you have a connection to ServiceNow, we'll even configure those activities for you.
Sounds great. And another question, this might be too silly. So if we
No
ask
question. Please.
Yeah, so if we ask Autopilot, let's say like, hey, find me the stock price for UiPath today, and like it extracts the value, and like I want to ask a follow-up question, like what was the stock price for like, in the past 5 months or so? Does it like, have that ability for me to like continue with like building the automation?
So right now, I think your scenario is more suited to the Autopilot for Assistant that we have showcased at
Yeah.
Forward. There, UiPath for Autopilot for Assistant is aimed at more one-off automations and chatting your way through to performing or building an automation. While UiPath Autopilot for developers is rather aimed at generating a reliable, repeatable automation workflow that can run that automation. Right now, the generate workflow experience does not involve chat. You can just simply take the workflow preview and then ask it, to tell it to add another activity by changing the prompt. But we are planning on improving it further into a full chat-like experience. So you can kind of do that in the Autopilot for automation developers right now too. You can just looking at the workflow preview and figuring out, hey, this is almost what I want, but I want another building block, and you can just tell it to. But in the future, we'll have a full chat experience.
Thank you. That is a great start. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ashton, can you please ask your question now? You have a bit
Hi,
of
yes.
noise.
Can you hear me? Or
Yes, we can hear you.
yeah, I have two questions. So I think I missed for the first one, I guess, is for this demo, is it still in preview or is it live to the public for like enterprise users?
It's
now?
private preview for insiders, which may include enterprise orgs. And the public preview is coming up very, very soon for Studio Web, and as part of the 23.12 community release for Studio Desktop.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And in relation to, you mentioned that it kind of deals with like simple to like medium complexity. Do you mind like kind of elaborating on that? Because I know like within the desktop version, you're able to identify more complexity within the logic and within different workflows. Like, will that be available in Autopilot or not as
Absolutely.
of right now?
Autopilot it's generative AI in general, right? Is aimed at, or generative AI solutions are aimed at making you more productive. It cannot scaffold an entire project for you, or it can if that project is of a small to medium size. Yeah. So don't expect it to scaffold a huge RE framework automation with lots of activities running in complex systems and tied one to the other right now. Expect it to be able to scaffold, let's say, workflows and automations up to 10, 12 activities.
Okay,
And
thank you.
scaffold it by bit. So you can do scaffold and then generate another workflow and then another, and work your way through to a larger project this way, but iteratively, not one shot.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's see if we have any other question from the audience. I guess not at this time. Then I think we can move to the next slide, and we would kindly like to ask you if you can scan the QR code and wait. For this community survey. It's a survey we run once a year for the whole UiPath community, an NPS survey, in order for us to know how did we do in the last year, what would you like more from us, how well we cater to the community. So it's very useful for us to get this kind of feedback once a year from the community. So please scan the code. I will also leave the link in the chat. And when you have 5 minutes, take the time to do this yearly survey for the UiPath community so we know how to better cater you next year. And maybe my colleagues can put the link in the chat. Okay, I see people are starting already to wish happy holidays. This was the close of a 1 year series, is the very last session for this year. So we close DevDives 2023 with this December session. Okay, Lox, Sophia, can you help me put the link in the chat for the survey? And yeah, and we hope that you really enjoyed it. You'll get the link soon. And see you next year in DevDives 2024. Sophia, Rox, any other words? Thank you. Yeah, I've seen people coming up with ideas like to have a virtual hackathon on Autopilot. We can do that in next year for sure. Just it would be good for us to know whether you feel like you need more demo sessions first or presented use cases before we actually dive into a hands-on hackathon. And regarding the content for today's session, you will receive a wrap-up email. All those who were registered through our event platform will receive the recording and the deck for today's session on email. So tomorrow you will have it in your inboxes. Don't worry. And you can find tomorrow also the recording on the very event link from which you registered. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays. Hope you enjoyed Autopilot and we'll try it out as soon as possible. Thank you.
Happy time off anyway.
Yes.
Not everyone is celebrating, but everyone is celebrating time off.
Bye-bye. Have a nice time.